Okay, welcome everybody. Steven, you're on. So you're dropping at half an hour?
Yes.
Okay.
Sorry. I thought I was muted, so I was desperately trying to get back to the mute button and then, yeah. Anyway, yes, I'm here for 30 minutes.
Okay. Reminder that we're an open and collaborative community and here to protect data and use. Our antitrust policy. Agenda-wise, I added one thing, which was, and have a typo there, which was just an update. We got the Bright Talk event that we talked about previously and reviewed the abstract for has been posted. So I'm gonna, I'll just share that. There's a few things I need to get them. They didn't put all the speakers in there, so I need to get them to update that. But I'll share that. Remind everybody of what we're doing there. I added just a recap. There was a discussion on the TAC about the idea we talked about last week about the dev day concept. So I'll hopefully more people. I'm already forgetting like a lot of the stuff, but we can look back at the minutes since Dave is not going to be on about the feedback on that and what the outcome was. We did also have a discussion about the webinars on the TAC call, so we want to finalize those plans. Bright Talk event I already mentioned. We have the white paper to some changes to review that Stefano will take us through, and then wanted to circle back and talk about the outreach chair election update. So that's the agenda. Does anybody else have anything to add to the agenda? Okay. Let me go forward then. Stefano, it looks like we've picked up some attendance, but I'm not sure we have quorum.
Yes, no quorum just yet.
No quorum. Okay, so we'll skip the minutes approval. Action item review.
Number one, just keep number one on there.
Okay. I haven't done number two, so keep that on there. Update on the PowerPoint.
Oh yes, that is in. So you can take that off. I will. I'll continue to send updates as they work on it. I've given them kind of a broad set of time to work on this because we asked them for a lot. But they will do it as soon as possible. I think I put the due date as a month out, basically, so that we'd have it mid-December. That would give us time to prep it for our next event in January.
Okay, well, we will have one in December 8th, but which is that Bright Talk event, but it's basically similar, or should be basically the same content as what we did for the webinar. So
right, and I assumed with KubeCon that there was no way they were going to get it out for then, so I just figured let's shoot for mid-December.
Okay, so you want me to take this off as a? I mean,
yeah, you can take that off. I got a ticket in Jira that I'm tracking it with, and then number three. You all got the email from me last minute. Apologies, but that is. I'm getting them to fix. If you look at page 14, you'll see the banner is there.
Okay, well, we'll look at that. I have an action later, so.
Yep. Okay. And number three is still in progress. Number four. The email did go out to the registrants, and I am adding I have a discussion with Craig to figure out how this YouTube thing works, like if it's best for us to upload it to theirs, and if so, are there any restrictions around us publishing on the LF website?
And I think I might have seen it, but did you post the MP4 into lists.io?
I believe I did. I'll double check on that in this meeting.
Okay, because that's what I need to send out to people so that they can put it on their own channels.
I know I uploaded it to groups.io, but I will double check that it is indeed on the list as well.
Okay.
And then, yeah, in terms of chatting with Craig, I'm just waiting till next week after KubeCon.
Okay, so I'll leave that one on there. I have not done this, so I'm behind on that, but after we, after we, kind of discuss it today, I'll try to get that done this week. We did do the TAC part, so we'll report back on that. I'm going to have to like dig through some notes or maybe look at the minutes to what all the details, but it was basically in line with what we were discussing. So that's the action item review. Did we miss anything? Any other action items people want to bring up? Okay. Okay. And Stephen, Stefano, can you guys help me out with this? Because I'm trying to recall all the comments about this. I think there was some concern about getting people to participate in something like this. I think they wanted to table and have further discussion when Ava was able to join, since it was Ava's idea.
Yeah.
So I think it's still going to be on the agenda for the next meeting.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
We can.
Okay.
Yeah, the base, as we tried to describe it and best represent Ava, it degenerated quickly into a discussion about hackathons, which might be difficult in a virtual world, though I guess it was Dave Thaler was pointing out that the IETF was struggling with the whole virtual hackathon thing literally that week, because they always do hackathons prior to IETF meetings, which is this week. So we basically, I guess, miscaptured Ava's intent of a developer days to the point that the discussion fell apart enough that we really needed Ava to give a clearer understanding to the TAC what was being discussed.
Yeah, I think it was Dave and Mike who expressed concern that we could get anybody to participate, was basically the concern or objection raised to doing it. So that, and it took, there was probably only 5 minutes of discussion on the topic, and it was probably good to give it one more hearing with you present.
I'll do my very best to make the next TAC meeting. And they're, from what you've just described, their concerns are well-founded. Getting any sort of participation these days is difficult in big events. And yet I also do see it happening in some events. And I can't quite pin down what makes those events different, other than, of course, the people there or the community. But yeah, happy to talk more about it.
Okay. So,
yeah, like I said, the biggest thing that I was concerned at is it degenerated into a debate that was almost pure hackathon. And it was like, I didn't have the feeling that that's what you were suggesting when you originally brought it up here in the outreach committee. And I just wasn't sure how to drag them away from this idea. No, we're not saying just a bunch of people trying to do a hackathon.
Yeah, not just a hackathon. So for, by way of story, the OpenStack Dev Days, or now Open Info Dev Days, do follow a pretty structured format where they set up specific rooms, both physical and virtual, even before the pandemic, for people, both at the conference and who couldn't travel to the conference to be able to participate. And so there's an IRC channel, a centralized Etherpad, a prearranged schedule of topics, and some of those, each topic might be, half hour to 90 minutes. And there might be a presentation on that topic from one of the current project leads, followed by brainstorming sessions. All the notes are collectively captured in a separate Etherpad just for that session. So planning happens, design work happens. There's opportunity for projects to also cross-pollinate. So while there might be, a track for project A and a track for project B, both of them might block off a specific time to have a shared track where both project teams come together into the same Zoom call or IRC channel and talk about how they work together in a specific way. and there's an output from that, and all of that turns into the work for the next 6-month cycle or 3-month cycle. So it's not just a bunch of developers sitting around in a room with laptops working on random projects. It's very much structured like you would structure a team of developers if you wanted to quickly plan out the next sprint. Does that help color it more?
Yeah, I think so. And I think, I think from Outreach's perspective, we understand and kind of got your background the last time, but I think it's more presenting that to the TAC and see, because they're the main people who would need to be bought into it for it to be successful, right? So
I'll try and throw a slide together.
Okay.
And there wasn't, they were open to the idea. It was, Seth and I were just describing it badly, and so everybody agreed we should have Ava describe the vision here.
Okay.
So it wasn't that people were loath to do it so much as they just weren't sure what they were being asked for.
Got it. Well, that sounds great. I'll happily share that the next chance that I get.
Okay, great. Another kind of recap discussion. We, if you remember last week, we discussed this concept of, turning our, building on our success from the first webinar and, doing a monthly frequency with the next one in mid-January. And then we thought that it would be good to approach the TAC about doing some more technical content than, the first one was kind of a primer on confidential computing. So I think the TAC was supportive of doing monthly and supportive of doing one in mid-January. They agreed that the projects, as well as the TAC white paper and specific technical topics like attestation would be good topics. And then here's where I need some help from Stephen and Stefano. I think the consensus was that we could either do something based on the TAC white paper or one of the project or NARCs as the first one, just because they have good materials ready and, as a project, with the idea that every project would get a webinar at some point. So I think that the summary was the TAC was either willing to do something based on the TAC white paper or NARCs as the mid-January one.
That was the impression I certainly had.
Yeah. So I don't know. I would just from a preference, I would kind of prefer the TAC white paper one go next. So it kind of completes the, it's like a good follow-on from the outreach white paper one, which, was the first one, although there was some overlap in the content. So I think that was one area to explore. So me personally, my opinion would be, I would rather have kind of a technical deep dive one based on the content in the TAC white paper as the next one, and then have NARCs follow that. Would be my preference, although don't have a strong opinion on that. We could go the other way around as well. So I think it's up to us which one we want to be next, and the TAC will support either of those two. So let me just open it up for opinions on that. Ben, you're probably an important contributor since you would be involved in doing the NARCs one.
Yep. Yeah. No, I think the NARCs team would be very happy to support this. I don't see an issue. We've done a number of different presentations at different levels, so we're happy to tweak it to the audience we want to really focus on.
Okay, great. If NARCs is more if you have kind of existing content ready to go, that may be easier to hit the time frame. That's kind of the other side of the argument for mid-January, versus the TAC would probably be developing new slides based on the TAC white paper. So it might be a path of least resistance to go with the NARCS one first. So I'm open to either way. Does anybody else have an opinion?
This is Steve. The biggest concern we seem to get from the TAC was a fear of overlap on the materials from the webinar we just did versus the deep dive. And so I think a good break would be to do NARCS next, because I have high confidence in the NARCS team's ability to kind of, in a reasonably straightforward manner, stand one of these up. And that might give just a bit of distance between any of the overlap.
Mm-hmm. And also we could give the TAC the option to do something like attestation next, if they wanted to, because they'll have done more work on that, by mid-February or wherever it would. That sounds like a good plan. So shall we go with NARCS as the mid-January one?
So this is Jesse. I agree that NARCS has a lot of ready content, and that makes it compelling. But I also think we've now, we're well into our second year, and it's basically been the OE and NARCS show, and so I think we are going to need to really ramp into these other areas, either more detailed capabilities within the umbrella of confidential computing, like you mentioned, attestation, or also a lot of these other projects. I just feel like we need to start talking about new content as opposed to kind of continuing to go over the same content over and over.
I'm sure we can bring in something around Veracruz sometime next year as well. So I have to discuss with people back at ARM, but that's something we could.
Yeah, I think what we discussed last week was that we also want, the projects that are doing webinars to be like officially through the whole process. So that's why only NARCS and OE are mentioned. But the expectation would be that, maybe once each project gets goes through the whole process.
Yeah, well, but I mean, it feels like we've got a little bit of a chicken and egg situation where, we're having trouble getting some of these projects across the finish line because there's kind of a lack of attention and participation and awareness. And yet we're saying we can't really put any info out there on the website or in webinars and things like that until we have them as full projects. It seems to me that webinars and outreach overall should be looking to, expand the views, not just be a vehicle for the very narrow set of things that are already done. So, I mean, I just feel like a webinar to me would be a good forcing function to name a topic, something that, we want the industry to be aware of. We want people to be gaining information about, gaining knowledge about. And then, by setting that, it kind of puts responsibility on that project or on that, the people that are involved in that item to, kind of clean up their content and, make it digestible.
Just a couple clarifications. One, for the website, we are mentioning all the projects, even the ones that are in process. And all the projects were mentioned in the first webinar. So I think it's not that we're not talking about them, it's just we're not doing, the discussion from last week was that we don't do a dedicated allocate one of the webinar slots to one until they're through. So it's a little bit halfway between what you mentioned.
So I would tiptoe dance a little differently. The way I would kind of take Jesse's comments, which I'm glad you brought that up, Jesse, is I think there's certain things we kind of have to get out of the way first, you know, like the outreach white paper. We want to get the TAC white paper out. That's kind of our general broad kind of view of things. And I think that's kind of required to get it out there. I mean, I'm biased here, but you know, I think the two projects that have completely gone through, we should have the webinars on there. But absolutely, after that, we need to find a way to kind of open up the aperture. And you know, attestation is one way to do that, and getting to other topics, as well as talking maybe about, you know, ways to attack TEs or other kinds of, you know, conversations that we might want to approach. But I think at some point we are probably going to run, I don't want to call it, we'll run a little dry, but I think we might run into some challenges. I think when we see projects that are coming very close to the end, I think we might start opening up, because if you come to our mission, I know we're focusing on the projects we have, but if you come to the basic mission, what are we really trying to do? We're trying to kind of raise the whole industry, right? We're trying to do this education and just bring awareness out to everybody about technologies and things. So at some point, I can see us kind of going down that road, but I hope that we kind of meet each other in the middle, where the projects are finishing their paperwork and advancing, and start picking them up as they get, you know, closer to the end goal.
I 100% agree, and that was exactly my point. Is I do support the idea of doing NARCs next. I do agree we need to get these kind of well-established ones established, essentially. But I was kind of trying to make a reservation for, let's start there, but let's agree we need to go beyond just the well-established stuff, or we will never get other stuff more established, right? I mean, this isn't just a marketing wing for the existing stuff. It's a goal of growing, and you know, we need to get into like hardening processes. You know, like how do you make more resilient code using these kinds of things, or more resilient applications using these kinds of things? Like we need to get to these more advanced topics, because I think that's where we actually move the needle.
So I think the part of the process we discussed the last time was to, you know, basically anybody can propose a topic. It's not just limited to projects or, you know, official work that's been done. That's what I'm creating the template for. So we definitely want it to be open, and then in outreach, we'll, you know, look at the submissions and then kind of lay out the calendar with a few in a row designated. Hopefully I mean, I don't know what the latest is on all of the project status, but you know, let's say we do NARCs and one technical topic, whether it's the white paper attestation for the next two. I mean, that means that the next open one would be mid-March, right? So I would hope that we have more projects through the process, and it's kind of a moot point whether we do it before they're fully accepted or not.
I mean, you could do a webinar and call it proposed projects or something like that, and go through the projects that are in the hopper. What's their status? What's the call to action for them? I mean, you could make that a webinar topic, right? We don't just have to do webinars on history, like done stuff. We can also do webinars on working stuff or future stuff or things like that. I think we're trying to open people's eyes, not just market the current market.
Yeah, and I think that's a valid point, but I think the only thing we need to decide today is what's the one for mid-January. And then everything else we can figure out in subsequent meetings.
Did I hear Jesse volunteering to lead one of them?
Well, you know, I think those are the more interesting topics, and
I think you've got some great ideas there. You know? And you know, throwing Simon up with that lovely English accent, you know, everybody's just going to like assume that he's brilliant.
Oh yes, yeah, Simon always attracts.
So I'm hearing you volunteer Simon here.
And I think Simon has a white paper coming out too.
Yeah.
So let's recap. So is the preference for the mid-January one to have the NARCs one, or a TAC white paper based one? I think Stephen, I heard you advocate for kind of the NARCS one being next based on the, like, breaking up the outreach and TAC white paper topics.
That was kind of the gist of it. And I was
Yeah.
picking on NARCS only because I have great confidence in Nathaniel and Ben.
Yeah, I would kind of, from a content perspective, I'd prefer the TAC one to go first, but then I do agree that the NARCS, breaking up, because there was a lot of technical content covered in the first one, it might be better to break it up with the NARCS one. So I could kind of go either way. Jesse, do you have a preference for which one's next in
I
January?
agree. I like the breaking it up. We could start to feel redundant if
Yeah.
it feels like we're kind of capturing the same what is CCC stuff.
Okay.
Yeah. One thing I was also wondering about, as far as participants and stuff like that. I know with some of the forums we've had kind of diversity requirements that we've had to kind of jockey to meet. I don't recall though if that's a webinar specific thing or if that was this last one that was separate. Is that going to be an ongoing requirement that we're going to need to address?
I mean, I'll take that one.
Yeah.
That is not an issue for us in terms of webinars.
Okay.
I mean, we should always have as much of a diverse audience. And
Yeah, absolutely.
subjects.
Yeah, I know. I'm just, hard and fast rules is what I'm talking about.
But as an example, when we were trying to arrange the panel in Lyon, we had the threat of it being canceled because we were struggling to try to get somebody who is not white and male in that cabinet,
Right.
in that panel. And so, and this will be an issue, especially for events, and probably, I don't know if the requirement is higher for in-person events, but we do need to do that. We want to do that. We want to encourage people to do that. And one of the best ways, I'll speak on behalf of the NARCS team, one of the best ways we've found that is we're trying to get all of our, regardless of whoever you are, right? Get everybody, kind of all the developers, comfortable with talking about the projects externally at their own comfort level. And we kind of provide that internal kind of, hey, do you want to practice with somebody? Do you want us to look at your slides? Do you want to do this? But we give them the freedom to do whatever they want and apply to any session they want. So that helps, because then you kind of broaden the depth of the field instead of just a couple of people who tend to do most of the presentations. And that might be an interesting way, instead of just having the project leads going forward, it might be able to show a lot more diversity going forward when we kind of dig deeper into some of the developers working on these projects. If that makes sense. Because everybody has works in different parts of the projects and has different things to contribute. So actually, the great part is when we go into projects like, or topics like attestation or it seems other things, we might have a nice way to tap other people within our ranks, right?
Okay, shall we move on from the white paper? We'll say NARCS is the January one, and then I'll create a little template. So Ben, maybe you can help coordinate the creation of a title abstract and the stuff we need to get a landing page done, which is the first step. Yeah,
quick question on this. So when we do the project ones, what are we thinking? I mean, we've done kind of one person presenter. We've done 2 people presenters bantering back and forth. Is there a preferred format? Because we've done a variety.
I think it's up to you. I think in general, interactivity and kind of bantering back and forth is a good, makes it more engaging. But I think, we shouldn't say there's one fixed format. It should be up to the people making the proposal for what it is.
And who's going to decide the date? Because that might be a little bit of a, that could be.
I think that's part of, maybe you can coordinate with the people who would be the speakers and figure out a date that works. I think we were targeting mid-January just because we wanted to try to keep it monthly, but we want to do it with the holidays.
Okay. And is there a preferred day of the week?
It can be Tuesday through Thursday.
Okay.
I think Tuesday or Wednesday usually work better.
Okay, great.
So yeah, if you can just coordinate like that part of it, I'll put in a little template that's just like title, abstract, speakers, date, time, you know, the information that's needed for a landing page, which you're probably familiar with, but I'll create a little template just so we make sure we don't miss anything.
Great, thank you. Appreciate that.
And then, you know, I'll create a shared Google Doc that has like the calendar, you know, all the titles and abstracts and things like that in it. And we can, and maybe the process for submitting a new webinar. Okay, thank you. Next topic was the white paper update. So do you want to take over driving, or do you want me to just open this and
yeah, you can just open that. I mean, we're just going to review the changes. Also, I noticed that there's somebody joined on their phone, which is perfectly fine. I'm just wondering if that person's a voting member, because then we can approve the minutes.
No, this is Sarah Lynch from R3.
Okay, awesome. Thanks, Sarah. So yeah, if you want to open that up, I believe the only changes was the banner on page 14 and on the cover, adding the version number and date. And as I mentioned in the email, there is an issue with the references, but we can get that cleaned up. And I'm correct there. There were no changes to the text, was there?
If I think there were some changes to make to the like what do you call them, footnotes or whatever, in there to point to different things. I don't know if you consider that to the text.
Yeah, let me see if that.
So where is the, like, for some reason clicking on this link is getting me to log in to something. So is it under
It should be under outreach.
Is it under outreach or main group?
That's a great question.
Probably main group outreach, right?
I did that this morning rather early. It is under outreach, files, white papers.
Okay. I think the idea was that we wanted to always put it under main group.
Okay. I've been storing like the in process drafts in here.
Okay.
So when you go to white papers, you'll see all the versions going back.
Okay,
so version 5 above your mouse. There you go.
I'll make it bigger. Hold on.
And then we do have to clean up the references. So November 2020 and version 1.1 is how we're gonna version going forward. I'm guessing everyone sort of expected that one. But then if you scroll down to page 14 to where the references are, you'll see the banner they added. You could decide if it's a very simple banner. So if you wanted something more.
Sorry, my system's kind of changing the size slowly, and then it got really big. So hold on.
Yeah, that's just Chrome opening a really large PDF.
There we go. That's about right. Now let's see if it will let me scroll. No.
You might just need to download it and open it with your OS.
Is this okay? Okay, there we go. Now we can do it. Okay, so which page is the first?
So if you just scroll down to page 14, you'll see the banner that we added. And then I don't believe there were any changes in the references. They all seem to link to the same place. Like I said, there's an issue. You can see below the banner should be reference number 1, and instead there's just a link. And if you scroll down to the bottom of the page, you'll see reference 1 is sort of hanging off the end. So we'll have them fix that.
Is this a hyperlink?
It is, yes.
Just took a long time to.
I haven't tried clicking on it in the browser. I have confirmed that it is going to the correct place. Okay, it is.
Yeah, it looks like it, but let's.
I can talk to them about making a web version. So the one you're clicking on, that document is 3.7 megs. It's possible that the size of that document is what makes it run so slow in Chrome.
Okay, well, it looks like it went to the document, so that's fine. Or did you make the changes to point to the scoping document?
I believe was in the TAC white paper. Is there?
I think it refers to it in this white paper as well.
Oh, you're correct. I'll have them add that. Because it refers to scope. And we should put a footnote in there and just point to the scoping document. So I will.
Yeah, like the PDF version of the scoping document, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
All right, I will add that into the ticket. But how do we think that banner is good? It's again very plain, so that's kind of why I wanted to view this today. As I'm having them make changes, this would be the time to make that banner any different.
Isn't the blockchain use case supposed to be on this right here?
Hold on. It did fall off of there. Oh no, it's above there. If you scroll up.
Oh, okay, it was.
Yeah, it was up a little further. Okay, good.
Okay.
The elusive blockchain.
Okay, and then we changed so it has a version now, and the version's been updated to the 1.1 and November 2020.
Yep.
Okay. Any other questions? Did we miss any? Were there any other changes discussed that anybody wanted to check? Yeah, I think for the web version, it should be smaller.
Yeah, let me chat with them about the performance on Google Chrome, because I've noticed this as well, that when I use it in Chrome, it seems laggy. So yeah, I'll see if we can get a web version. The problem is everyone's going to download that, right? So I'll just see if we can troubleshoot what's going on with the browser experience.
Well, it might just be compressing some images or something, so.
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
And then before we move on to the next topic, Ava just had an update from KubeCon.
Okay, why don't you go ahead and give that update then?
Just wanted to share with y'all that we got a couple of mentions yesterday. The CNCF Security Day keynote included a mention of confidential computing, and that there's lots of interest there, and a pointer to us for folks to come learn more. And then in the afternoon, the GM for the CNCF, Priyanka, hosted a live stream. And in that live stream, it was like open to attendees to join. So I joined, and she asked me to introduce the consortium, or talk more about it after she introduced it, and the work that we're doing here and intersection with projects over there. So, we got 2 mentions on day 1.
Okay, great. Actually, that reminds me, let me give an update that I gave to the TAC that was about the TAC white paper. We had, and I stop me if this happened last week, but I think it happened between the last outreach meeting and today, but we had a document review with Steve Riley of Gartner about the TAC white paper, and he was, he had a few suggested changes, but was very impressed by the white paper and thought it was quite well written. So we definitely kept that relationship going. He's the one who maintains the definition of confidential computing for Gartner. So we had some very good discussions. It was me and Dave reviewing the white paper with him. So that went well. The TAC is gonna, I think he went through the changes on the last TAC meeting, and then they're gonna, make the changes suggested by Steve and update the version of the TAC white paper. So Okay. Next, I added this to the agenda. I just got this link. If you remember, when I investigated doing kind of the Bright Talk sharing of webinars, we also got the opportunity to be in one of their virtual events, and we reviewed the abstract, which is this protecting against public cloud data breaches using confidential computing. This is going to be a similar content to what we did for our internal webinar, but with a Bright Talk audience. And we changed it. We're in a category that's about preventing data breaches in cloud. So that's hence why we adjusted the title to be a little different. So that is up there. There were a few, like not all the speakers were listed. So I'm going to try to get that fixed before we promote it. And then I'll send this link out for people to promote on social media like we did for for our internal webinar. So that is an update on that. Any questions on this one? It's on December 8th. I'm gonna reach back out to the speakers from the webinar, which is the same set of speakers and the same content, to make sure, see if there are any updates. But essentially, we should be redoing the same content as the internal webinar in this virtual event. Any questions on that before we move on? Okay. I wanted to check in on the outreach chair election. So just a reminder, I think Stefano sent out a call for nominations. I was very late in submitting mine. I had told you guys that I was planning to stand for a re-election. So I sent that out early this morning before the meeting. Given that, I don't, Stefano, were there any other nominations that I missed? I didn't see any in reply to that email.
I agree. I didn't see any either. I'll double check. But
so I wanted to, since I hadn't submitted mine until very recently, wanted to maybe extend the period and just do kind of last reminder in case anybody wants to nominate anyone for the position. So Stefano, do you want to, any other things to add, or do you want to update the timeline? Because I think you had previously said kind of by the end of the day yesterday.
Yeah, I'm happy to just, we can, if no one else submits this week, we can send a, because I believe we decided we wanted to vote regardless of the fact that there's only, if there's only one nomination, we still want to vote. Is that correct?
I think we should.
Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it's an easy process for me, so this doesn't take a big chunk out of my day.
No offense, but we also don't have quorum today, so.
Right. Okay, so let's just move forward with that. I'll give it till the end of the week, and then on Monday, I will send out a vote.
And just reemphasize that you don't have to be, you can be any member or anybody in.
Yeah,
in
exactly. I'm not a premier member, so
yeah.
So we've set that precedent for sure.
Yeah, because it's good. Maybe there's some newer members that might be considered to be more active, and maybe they want to say something. So it just might pull in some more participation.
Sure. So I'll send out an email today just to remind everyone that we're nominating still, and that that you do not have to be a premier member to nominate yourself.
Sure. Thank you.
No problem.
Okay. Thank you, Stefano. So let's, since we have a little time on this, let's make my life easier, and we'll get the agenda for next meeting going. So I'll give an update on webinars. So we should have the template and the process for submitting topics for webinars by then. So we'll update on that for sure. Any other topics people want to raise next meeting?
We'll probably want to talk more about the dev days, whatever becomes of that.
Is response from TAC after second discussion.
And then there's the election. And do we want to have some, besides the webinar process and calendar, do we want to talk about maybe 2021 goals or something more generic like that?
That would be good. I kind of outlined some of those in my statement of intent too. So maybe do a recap of that and get ideas from other people if we want to adjust that. Good idea, Ben.
Also, 2 quick notes. The TAC will not be meeting to discuss anything before our next meeting. And second note, I assume our next meeting will not be next week on Wednesday, though we certainly could meet the day before Thanksgiving. I'll be here. And then if we do meet, we'll be meeting just before the TAC meets. So we'll be meeting on December 2nd would be our next Wednesday that is not.
Okay, well, let's first, because like this dev days won't be on the agenda if it's next week. So what do people want to do in terms of the meeting on Wednesday? Do we want to still hold that? Do we want to skip a meeting or change the date next week? I'm happy to do it at the regularly scheduled time, but I'm also, you know, I think it's unlikely we achieve quorum. So I'm happy to table it for 1 week as well. Thoughts?
Keeping is probably easier, but I'm happy either way for me.
Okay.
So wait, we're talking about should we cancel the next meeting?
Yeah, should we cancel the next meeting and meet the following Wednesday, or should we have the next meeting with the idea that we may not have quorum and kind of just go through some of these items?
I guess that's my concern. Is we're highly unlikely to have quorum next week, so
okay,
maybe
skip it this next week, and then
I mean, unless somebody knows of something that like has to be decided next week. But if that's the case, we're going to need to do some sort of a positive poll of to get quorum, because it seems to me to be unlikely.
I don't think anything has to happen next week, so
I've been generally recommending to folks, because everyone in the US has so much of their vacation time saved up, that they be lenient with canceling and cancel readily if there's nothing to discuss, because lots of people are going to take vacations this holiday.
Yeah.
I think we probably should let it go. And the only thing we should do is just, the only thing that's on our plate is that Bright Talk. That's what really needs, that and the election. Those are the two main topics that we have to address.
Yeah, and I think the Bright Talk I'll address separate, you know, with the speakers and make sure they have everything they need and it's on their calendars. That doesn't require an outreach meeting to do that.
Yeah.
And then the election, you know, everybody's had that information for a while, and that can be done by email and through the voting. So I don't think that requires, that's more just like a readout on what happened. And then the rest of the things, you know, we can, you know, involve the TAC who's not meeting anyway. So I think the 2 items that have to be done can be done by email and offline. Okay, so why don't we cancel next meeting, and then we'll make the next one December 2nd. And then that will be, we can take this off the agenda because TAC will not have met by then. So these will be the items. Let me know if you have any other things that come up. Bright Talk, event update. Okay, I think we can, and anything else?
We might want to just do a quick update on the January webinar, a sync there.
Yeah, that's I'll include that in here. Okay. Anything else? Okay, let's adjourn a little early then. Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye. Thank you.
Thanks.